What's up, YouTube? It's Josh Pillault, the RuneScape Felon, back with your favorite YouTube series ever, Tales from the Jungle. And today, I'm going to be telling you a story about a little place known as Oklahoma City Transfer. It is a federal joint that I believe is not only holding while you were pre-sentence, but also a transfer center for federal inmates while they're on their way to prison. Once you've already been sentenced and you're actually transferring out, it's a major place where they collect the inmates, stamp them, get a lot of money for us sleeping there that night, and then the next day or within a few weeks or whenever the next plane or bus runs, they ship us out to the other corners of the earth. Much like Atlanta works as well. It's kind of like a hub, a shipping hub for inmates, if you will. They're kind of the Amazon of inmates. And so Oklahoma City is very well known for being the place where Joe Exotic is held at the beginning of Tiger King. And I actually did not even finish season 1 of that, so I need to catch up on that. Me and Karis are going to have to start that over. But I get asked a lot about that because people are like, yeah, you know that place where Joe Exotic was, the Oklahoma City? And I'm like, matter of fact, I do. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't do some, asinine length of time there or anything. I was at Talladega for like over 2 years and, various joints for a lot of time. But I was only at Oklahoma City Transfer for 2 weeks, I think it was, or so. It was when I was transferring out after my mental evaluation, my 90-day mental evaluation in Butner, North Carolina. When I left that prison, I was transferred to Oklahoma City. And even just riding there was super sketchy to begin with. So evidently, I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently, you know how this was brought up on stream and in the Real Men Talk Shit podcast that I do, check that out by the way, that local police officers, when they confiscate a vehicle, that they will, use it for their own purposes. If they are not required to give it back or they confiscate it for some reason, the person goes to prison, etc., it becomes their property. And apparently the feds operate much the same way with the people that they bust, but with the FBI, a lot of times they're busting international drug dealers. And so what are the things that they happen to take from those guys? Airplanes. So you may have heard of the legendary Con Air, as they call it, and I think that was like a comedy movie or something too, is where that phrase originated, but it's when they ship us around from prison to prison on airplanes in full body shackles. They throw a chain around your center, handcuff your hands to that, so you got about a good inch there, put a 1-foot shackle or so on your ankles, tighten it a little too tight to make sure you can't run, even if you wanted to, surrounded by marshals with shotguns every time that you step off of a bus or a plane. Yeah, you definitely want to run with some 1-foot shackles on, and just making it too tight is definitely necessary. But whenever I shipped out from Butner, they ship you out by surprise there. The CO just knocked on my door and was like, come on, it's time to ship out. And they always know that that's a possibility whenever you're at Butner for the mental evaluation. You know that since you're not serving time, that they're not going to let you know when it's time for you to roll out, and you're not going to be able to bring your stuff with you even if you did, because the part that I went to, even though we were at the prison, the unit that I stayed in, while everything else was open to the normal prison for the inmates serving time, the part that I was in was specifically for inmates to receive a mental evaluation prior to sentencing or to aid in sentencing. So we're well aware of the fact that we're not allowed to bring any stuff with us when we leave, and that we will randomly be said, hey, you're packing up, get out of here. So they told me to pack up at Butner. We jumped in the van and they took us to, I think it was Raleigh something, North Carolina, Raleigh Durham. I don't know, some airport, and the plane that they had there was a 4-man plane. Now, I've never really been on an airplane before. I went on like a small cargo plane with a buddy of mine that didn't go very high one time. His dad drove it. But this is like my first time, in the feds was my first time really flying on a plane and like hitting clouds and stuff like that. And this little 4-man plane was utterly horrifying to me. And the other 2 inmates were, when I say 4-man, okay, I say 4-man, I guess it wasn't, people that know about airplanes probably wouldn't call it this. So there was like cockpit and pilots. And then there were 2 marshals standing here with us that had chairs right behind them, so I guess that's already 4. And then there was a couch with us 3 inmates on it, shackled up, chained into it, seatbelt back, and barely room to even stand up in it. It was the tiniest little plane. It was astounding, and it was inmate transport. And I don't know if this is because they confiscated it for a drug dealer, or if they, third-party rent-out services, like, hey, man, can you drop some bozos off in, Oklahoma City for us or what? But either way, we flew from North Carolina to Oklahoma City Transfer, where I was dropped off. Two things I very clearly remember about this plane ride, right? So the 2 guys that were riding with me on the plane were both Hispanic dudes. They were actually they were both Mexican. So the old dude didn't speak any English. He's probably about 50 years old, and real just kind of like hung his mouth open, and he just kind of looked like he was mentally ill. And this dude had breath, bro. In jail and prison, I smelled some breath that will put your eyebrows on the back of your neck. But this was a beast. This man had a demon living inside of his tonsils or whatever he had left back there. Like, I mean, holy shit, this man smelled like he ate crack sandwiches for breakfast every day of his life and never brushed his teeth once. and he ate ass for dessert every step of the way. I mean, like, it stunk up the whole place. Like, I saw the marshals making faces of discomfort from this old guy's teeth, and they were solid gray. No exaggeration. We're talking like PlayStation controller gray, like not like old school PlayStation controller gray, like ugh, bro, and it stunk. And the other thing that I remember about this is having to pee the worst that I've ever had to pee in my life, because at this point I was still fairly early in my incarceration. Y'all know I like to be pretty open and honest, right? So your boy here used to have a shy bladder. All right, if I thought somebody was peeping out my wang or something like that, or somebody could, you know, was intentionally trying to listen to me pee, you know, I kind of had a little bit of trouble peeing sometimes. And whenever I got up to pee on that plane, they gave us 2 cartons of milk. That's all we got for the plane ride. And they gave us these 2 little hoe-ass, like, high school cartons of milk, you know, like a pint or whatever, half pint. So basically a pint of milk. And I already kind of had to pee. And so I drank those. And then I got up to go pee. Right after I drank them, they weren't kicking in yet. And the marshal, this was like the worst that I've ever had a marshal. Like, normally I'm good because the plane's loud, you know, and we're in the air and stuff like that. But this marshal, this dickhead kept his nose on my shoulder while I was trying to pee, dude. I'm sitting here trying to pee, and he's over here like, I can't even tell you, bro. Like, I felt the breath on the back of my neck, you know, like, dude, get off of me, bro. And maybe that's because I'm a terrorist, because I don't think that I'm not really a terrorist. Maybe that's because I had terrorist charges, because I don't think that he was hawking on the other guys like that. But anyways, or maybe, you know, maybe I don't know, maybe it was a little ooh-ooh kind of thing. I don't know what was going on, but either way, I didn't get to pee. Bro, by the time we landed that plane, when we got off of it, I literally was doubled over in pain. Like, I've thought I've had to pee in my life, but I've never experienced excruciating physical pain. Not the burning discomfort of a bad pee. This was pain to the point of, like, doubled over. I think something's gonna break in here in a second. Like, I can't hardly take a step. And they finally let me hit a porta potty real quick where I was able to pee for about 17 minutes. They probably thought I was in there setting up a bomb or something. Finally, they were like, we knew we shouldn't let them in there, because I was in there peeing for a hot minute. But anyways, so I went to Oklahoma City, and I remember it was kind of like there's like a center guard pillar like this, you know, and it's one-way mirrors, two-way mirrors, whatever the hell you call them. You can see yourself, but when they're in there, they see out. And each of this, it was either hexagonal, octagonal, whatever you want to call it, you know, station where the COs were all huddled up here in the center. Every single side of it faced towards a door with another one-way mirror. So the inmates, again, when you're in the pod, you can't see out at all. You just see a reflection, but they can see, you know, straight clean out. There's just absolutely no seeing the COs, like, ever hardly, except when they open the beanhole or come in for various short reasons or whatever. And I think also that is it called a tarmac? I'm not sure. The tube that connects, the building has its own place where a plane pulls up and a tube sticks out from I mean, the feds are big business. All right, they're running a lot of inmates. The feds are big fucking business, right? So they have one of those things that's like a tube that's coming out and does it to the airplane or whatever, and the inmates get straight on. But it had been damaged, I think, recently in a tornado. I want to say this is at the end of 2013, and I want to say within the year to 2-3 years, something like that prior, it had been damaged. But I got in there, man, it was a 30-man pod. It was a 30-man pod. There were 10 triple stack racks in just a big open room, dude. 10 triple bunks, not bunk beds, triple bunks with, I mean, like, the whole triple stack was barely higher than I could probably demonstrate with my arm. Like, when you were laying in that thing, like, you had to lay down to get in it. Does that make sense? Like, you couldn't crawl in bed and turn around and pat down like a dog and get comfortable and slide in your spot and shit. No, none of that. Like, when you were getting in it, you had to already be in, like, Matrix locked in mode just to slide into scoot sideways into that bitch. So it was really cramped even just trying to chill in your bed, you know. And they had lots of beds around, I mean, lots of metal tables, you know, the bolted down typical county jail there. The loudest things in the world for a domino to slap against, you know, those tables. It's like they're designed specifically so that inmates fight each other over the sound of dominoes hitting them or something like that. And spades smack on them great. But we also had 2 toilets for 30 men. And as you know, with county, if you ever done jail and prison time, you know that there's 2 toilets amongst a bunch of shared men. You know you got a pisser and a shitter. Everybody knows that, okay? Sorry for being graphic, and we had 2 showers. This is 30 men, guys. 30 men. 1 pisser, 1 shitter, 2 showers, 30 men on triple stack racks. This was outrageous. Like, I got in there and my jaw dropped. I was like, wow, 30-man pods with 1 little hoe-ass cathode ray tube TV. Looked like a Minecraft block. This TV had probably been hanging up there since, I mean, like, holy shit. The first thing that TV in there saw when they turned that shit on was Nixon resigning. Like, I'm not a crook or something like that. Like, this TV had to have been damn near black and white. And also what I remember about this, rest in peace James Avery, because like a few days after I got there, I remember looking up on that big, huge Minecraft block TV, and James Avery had died. Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince, which is one of my favorite shows ever, so rest in peace. Yeah, man, 30-man pod with 2 toilets working, 1 pisser and 1 shitter. Things are going to get a little tense at times, and I do specifically remember one time, the shitter wasn't working. That's great. We only got 30 men in here using one toilet to poop in and one toilet to pee in. This is awesome, you know? So this poor sap, right? This poor son of a bitch. And I'm really glad that I didn't have the bunk that was closest to the door because everybody would get up and get their trays. And I'll get to the food at Oklahoma City in a second. They got a great loophole here that I'm going to tell you about. But they get up and they pass the trays to the bean hole, right? Everybody eats their trays. They got the big, thick danger trays that are apparently famous for knocking out people's teeth. And when we're done, we all just stack them. They leave kind of like a pulley thing by the door. Not really a pulley thing. It's like a wagon sort of, a wagon little thing. And we stack the trays on it. And customarily, it's the guy who sleeps by the door's job. Whenever the COs open the bean hole, he jumps up and he hands them the trays through the bean hole, right? Well, that day that the poopy toilet wasn't working, that poor bastard jumped up. They opened the bean hole to get the trays back, and they're like, pass out the trays. And the guy jumps up, and he's la-di-da-di-da, and he's walking over there, and he picks up a few of the trays and goes to hand them out. And, of course, you hear an inmate, hey, bruh. And he stops and he looks. Hey, don't you give them that motherfucking tray, bro. They can come in here and get that tray. They need to fix that toilet. And you just hear a pin drop. Looks like the inmates are about to buck. Sometimes you got to do stuff like this to get their attention. You know what I mean? You got to not cooperate with them. However, normally the people that aren't cooperating are the ones that, you know, came up with the idea to not cooperate. But this poor bastard just happened to be the guy that unfortunately grabbed the bed that was by the door when somebody left. And he took their spot. And so now he's standing there by the door, and the inmates are like, yeah, he's right. You know what? Hey, y'all need to come fix that toilet. If you want the trays, come fix the toilet, huh? We're not doing nothing. And they're all like looking at the inmates, and they look at this guy. Inmate Brown, stop resisting a direct order. And he's like, resisting a direct. And the inmates are like, don't you touch those fucking trays. We're going to beat the shit out of you. And the COs are over here like, you're resisting a direct order. We're going to beat the shit out of you. And this dude's over here like, what the fuck do I do? But in the end, thankfully, what they did was they popped the door open, they came in, and they stuck a snake down the toilet and unclogged it, and pretty much flipped us all off and grabbed the trays and walked out with the wagon, and everything was cool. And then everybody got respect for that dude. Hey, man, you held up, bro. Hey, you held up. He's over here, you know, swinging the D, like, yeah, man, I did that. I did that little bit. You know, I held it down when I was in the Hooskow, you know, and that guy's probably just going to have forever legendary street cred. But I know that in that moment, he looked like I would have looked. He looked like a deer in the headlights. He was getting it from both sides. Don't touch those trays. Give us those trays. And like, both of these people collectively as a group have power over you. And they're, yeah, I don't know. That would have sucked. And I still remember one of the characters that was cracking up in the back was this, a northerner. I almost said Yankee, but that's a very nondescript word. But he had a northern accent, and I jokingly refer to that as a Yankee. I'm not actually like that. I'm not exactly proud of being a Southerner or anything like that. It's just a reference to his accent. And the thing that I remember about this guy is, like probably, you know, 60% of the white dudes in the feds, he was in there for cooking meth, at least according to him, and he had blown his hand off with making shake and bake meth somehow. And so he had these like little tiny gross looking nubs, and like you could just kind of see like it looked like the bone was sticking out a little, and they let the skin flap over it, almost like if Wolverine had like no fingers and his blades only came out like 4 millimeters. Okay, that was a bad description. That's the least intimidating thing ever. But I still remember him, his Yankee accent, and I clearly remember him in the crowd because I could just clearly hear that accent just hits my ear so strongly. He's in the back like, oh, no, you don't. Don't you hand them those trees right there. Oh, no, oh, you better not. Oh, you better not hand those guys that tree. Oh, you better not. I was just over here like, be quiet, dude. And I still remember him telling some story about when he was tripping on acid looking at the moon. And I couldn't stop cracking up. He's like, I was looking at the moon. Oh, I went outside, and I was looking up at the moon. Oh, my goodness, man. I was cracking up. But the dude was actually pretty chill. And I remember him telling a story about how he was playing guitar, and I was really, really confused because his left hand was the one that was blown off. Or, his left hand was blown off, right? Nubby fingers. And he was talking about how he was playing his guitar one time. And I was like, oh, were you left-handed? And he was like, no. Yeah, so I don't think that guy plays guitar. I don't think he realized that I was a guitar player. My brain immediately tried to figure out how he plays guitar. And I was like, surely, I guess he could hold a pick between, you know, right there. He still had his thumb, right? You know, and then he could, you know, yeah, that seemed work. But the fact that he froze up like that and didn't know that I was, you know, I don't know, it was weird. But yeah, as I was going to say about the food that Joe Exotic was eating when he was in there, man, the feds are required to give us a certain amount of calories and shit, like per day. And sometimes they have nefarious ways of meeting that. Now, once you're actually in federal prison where you're serving your time, they have a standardized menu that like the prisons actually use. It's the same at every prison. Like Wednesday is hamburgers and French fries. They call it Happy Meal or whatever for lunch. Thursday is chicken on the bone. Friday is going to be some type of fish or fish patty, etc., etc. It's a rotating cycle thing. But here, they didn't have to abide by that. So what they would do, much to my surprise, I get up the next morning. everybody's going to the tray and going to the bean hole, getting their tray. I go there, I grab my tray, and it's, a big scoop of Frosted Flakes, generic ones. Give me my good generic cereal and my little carton or pint of milk or whatever, and I go to sit down. At least it wasn't the bag milk. And I go to sit down with it, and I notice I had my spoon and a very meager serving of cereal and my milk, and the other slot on the tray had a big bright yellow ball on it. And I was very confused looking at this. I was like, we're trying to figure out what the hell that was supposed to be. I was like, I don't know what breakfast food that this is. This is some kind of creamy, strange looking substance. And I was like, hey man, what is this? Is this like mashed potatoes or something? Like, I've seen some strange looking mashed potatoes and potato salad when I was locked up. So I was like, is that what that is? What is this, potato salad for breakfast or something? He was like, no man, it's butter. It was butter. Apparently, to legally meet their minimum calorie needs per day, they just give you a fat fucking Baskin-Robbins scoop of butter with every meal. Yeah, and the calorie, like, if you don't eat it, that's your choice. They gave it to you. You can, if you eat that with everything else we gave you, you can stay alive. So if you're having hunger and nutrient problems, you can't blame us. We gave you the calories. If you didn't want to lick that ball of butter, well, that's just not our fault, and you can't sue. And let me tell you, some people in there did not seem to mind the butter. I personally was mortified to learn that shit was butter, and I wanted that thing off of my tray at the earliest possible convenience. It was more butter than you would need at a dinner table. Like, how is it? Surely that's expensive to some degree, right? Surely that's got to be more expensive. It's probably just some butter-flavored chemical that's got calories in it or anything. But anyways, it was a wad of butter, man. And dudes would be walking around, with getting little spoons of it, and licking it for a minute, walking around playing dominoes or whatever. I was like, y'all are nasty, dude. I'm not eating straight butter. I'm sorry. I'm not going for that. So the food was awful, but luckily they ran commissary every day. Now, the reason they did that is because they ran buses every single day. Anytime that you got there, they did so many transfers that you never know if you're going to be there for one night or a month. There's no telling. So the best way for them to maximize profits is to sell commissary every single day. So they actually it was the most expensive commissary I've ever seen in the feds. A bag of Jolly Ranchers was like $3.50 for like 10 of them or 12 of them. Like maybe $2.50 for like a bag ramen. Like the worst markup I've ever seen, because they know that only the people with money or access to it are going to be able to get it that fast, get the money on their books, order the food, get it brought to them, and they'll probably be shipping out. So they're trying to jack up the price. And it's, if you want it, you can get it every day, but it's hella expensive. And they're just making their con, Most everybody has to leave that stuff behind because they have to leave something behind because, they ship out almost every single day. And I remember there were almost a few tussles in there, and I remember a guy punching a guy because he sold him dip that had already been dipped. But apparently the guy was like, you thought I was selling you undipped dip? I've been in jail for 9 months. Where do you think I got undipped dip from? Because in the feds, people smoke dipped dip. So I guess this guy was like a rookie transferring into the feds and didn't know people smoke that stuff. So this dude sold him some used dip. He's thinking he's getting a deal on it. He throws it in his mouth, and everybody's like, bro, that's already been dipped. What are you doing? You're supposed to smoke that. But anyways, they got into it. But, overall, and the Moon, the meth head guitar mystery hand man, it was the usual, man. I stayed out of the way. I played some dominoes with a lot of Hispanic dudes. I stayed in there kicking it with the Mexican dudes playing dominoes while I was there a lot. Because I speak good enough Spanish to play dominoes, and for some reason I got on a lucky streak because I acknowledge the fact that a lot of card games and stuff like that come down to luck. I got super lucky, and the Hispanic dudes just thought I was a boss at dominoes. But don't get me wrong, you got to play them right. But anyways, man, I had a good time while I was there as far as doing time goes. The one TV kind of sucked, but like I've always said, I never really paid much attention to the TV while I was in there. And there were some funny guys, and the shit kind of sucked, but I think I was only there maybe 8 days to 2 weeks. I wasn't there very long, but that's where Joe Exotic was, man. That's Oklahoma City transfer. It's a very, very well-known joint because pretty much anybody going to a prison on the western side from our side, I think, has to go through there. Much like if you're going anywhere from our side to our side again, you're probably going to have to cross through Atlanta. But yeah, I figured I'd give a little insight into what his day-to-day life might be like. And when you're watching this, I'm probably either live on Twitch or about to go live on Twitch, and I'm really close to partner. I just applied for it. We need to keep the numbers up, so make sure you come hang out, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Everything's been going great lately. The support's been beautiful. I hope you guys had a great time with this. I want to do something funny and reaction-y again soon because I love roasting stuff. It's just one of my favorite things to do, and more so than react, that was just kind of my angle with that last one. I enjoyed it just for the fact of being able to roast something, which is just one of my great life joys. I don't roast schools anymore. That didn't go too hot for me or anything. But I love you guys, man. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the growth. Make sure you guys check out the Real Men Talk Shit podcast. We've seen a lot of growth and had some amazing guests on here. Check out our last video, Wendigoon. Have you seen YouTube? Have you seen Wendigoon's YouTube? Of course you've seen YouTube. Have you seen Wendigoon's YouTube? It's fucking phenomenal, dude. It's out of this world. Please go check it out. I went to check it out just to know who he was, and I got addicted to it. So Make sure you check that out. Check out the Real Men Talk Shit. Check out the Patreon, the Discord. I love you guys. I'll see you all very, very soon. And if you made it this far, what's the fruit I didn't use last time? Comment a peach down below. We're getting edgy this time. Peach down below. Here come the Patreon people.